Welcome to a Backyard Ultra podcast. In this episode, I caught up with Mark Sims. Mark's a Backyard Ultra runner and a Backyard Ultra lover just like me. Here you go. Okay, Mark, how you going?
Yeah, not too bad.
Great. Thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for having me. Always happy to chat. Well, yeah, running, life, backyard ultras, everything.
Yeah, awesome. So we have run in the same race at MVP a couple of times, but this is the first time we've ever actually talked to each other. So
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, I don't really know all that much about you apart from your Instagram account. So how long have you been running for?
Oh, look, I think I've been running in some form. Yeah, probably my whole life. I mean, I grew up on the coast in New South Wales in a place called Port Stephens, probably 500 meters from the beach. So I grew up doing nippers, junior life saving, and I wasn't actually a very great swimmer, but I was good at sprinting on the sand and running, doing the flags and things like that. And so I was good at sprinting. And when I got into high school, I did cross country, and then I guess it was on and off throughout my life. But when I got really into it, I'd say would be when my wife and I relocated to moved to Melbourne in 2017.
Mm.
Her family were from here, and I didn't really know anyone here, or my family in New South Wales. And I thought a great way to meet people would be to, join running clubs, and, that's how I really started to get into it more. And then I think, I guess it's an interesting question because there's like, when did you get into running? And then when did you get into something like backyard ultras or ultra running or,
Yeah.
that's a whole other thing. But I think for me, it's always just been like a lot of things in my life, gradual, saying yes to opportunities and seeing where they take me. And for me, I first heard about, backyard ultras in 2019. At that point, I'd only ever done a half marathon, but for me, the first time I ever heard about it, I was like, oh God, how do I do this? Like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
I think it was like you see an amazing film or hear a song and it just clicks, like you're like, oh, that was almost creative for me. And for me, when I heard about the backyard ultra, you're either going to be curious about something like that or you're going to be put off or just
Yeah.
think it's crazy. But I was just like, well, I think that's for me. So, the first time I heard about it, from then it was just about, okay, I want to keep doing them and get into that type of running. Kind of skipped the marathon. And I haven't even done one.
Really?
And it seems too short now for me. But I think I've always been fascinated and interested in running. But it was probably in 2019 that something clicked.
Yeah. Do you remember how it was you actually heard about Backyard Ultras for the first time?
Oh, what was it? It was probably on Facebook or something. I mean, I had heard about the Barkley marathons. I'd watched that documentary on Netflix, and that's how I got into that and Laz. And it was probably on Facebook or something like that I heard about it. And then I followed, the one in 2019. I think that Maggie Guttrell won.
Mm.
And I think at that point, that might have been the first year of Miriam Wernett, the one in Victoria. Because obviously when I first heard about them, I think there was only one in Victoria, and it was that one.
Yeah.
And, I was like, okay, well, how do I do one? And then I actually heard one came about, it was Trails Plus, amazing company run by Brett in Victoria. They put on all of these trail events and races, and that actually announced that they were doing one called MVP. It was going to be in Feb 2020. I think it was actually short notice. I think I heard about it 4 or 5 weeks before it was going to happen. Like, it was one of those, and I definitely did not have the prep, but I didn't care. I was like, I have to do one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did, and it's definitely great for, you learn a lot. If you suddenly it clicks in your head that you want to try an ultra, or you want to try even worse, a race that doesn't even have a set distance or limit, but you go until you can't anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just went straight to that.
So as a fan of the format already, you must have been pretty excited to run in the first one back in 2020 at MVP.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. I'm just a massive fan. Like, even if I'm not doing them, I follow on Facebook. I probably listen to as many podcasts as I can, and I love following them. And they can be hard to follow sometimes. It's literally refreshing Facebook pages and groups and things like that. But ever since I first heard about them, I've gotten excited about them.
Yeah.
I would share with my friends or my wife, oh, can you believe they're still going? Like, oh my God, this is now we're at the point where the world record's 102, but this is when it was 60 and things like that. And I'm like, can you believe my wife? She doesn't actually like running. She doesn't really like me talking about it. But yeah, I would just get excited about it, and I always have. So I guess it helps with anything you're doing in life to be really passionate about it and to love it.
Yeah, yeah,
It kind of
because
gives you an advantage.
yeah, definitely. I remember before. Well, I actually joined Facebook around about the time I started this podcast because I realized like if you want to follow Backyard Ultras, you need Facebook.
Yeah, that's right.
100%.
Yeah, that's right. And I remember there was a great one in 2020. I think it was the quarantine
Right.
backyard ultra that was happening during COVID, where there were literally people all over the world um in like a Zoom call doing a backyard ultra. And I remember I just had that on in the background. But yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely love following it. And I love doing them as well.
Yeah, sure. The so I mean a lot of planning goes into doing a backyard ultra. Like nutrition is probably the one that most people plan the most for. But one of the things that really got me interested in your story was the fact you've got type 1 diabetes, and that's something you have to manage when you run yours. So, um, how does that affect your planning for your backyard ultras, the type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, look, um, I guess I was going back to the beginning. I mean, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2008.
Right.
And it's an autoimmune condition. My pancreas doesn't produce insulin, which breaks down the sugars in foods. So that was 2008, and that went undiagnosed for me for 3 months. So I
Wow.
lost 16 kilos. I ended up in the hospital. I was quite sick because you do need insulin to break down the sugars in foods. And if you take too much insulin, it's bad and dangerous. And if you don't have enough and you go high, it's dangerous. So it's this juggling act. And I've had to, I guess, diabetics can go through a lot in terms of um, denial and feeling alone and isolated. There's depression associated with diabetes, feeling like you're quite limited in what you can do in terms of trying to live a healthy, happy, normal life. And for me, it's definitely been a journey since 2008 where I've seen, thankfully, advances in technology, of a lot of the equipment subsidized and available through health insurance and things like that. So, and I have an amazing support team at Alfred Hospital as well. But I've seen it. I guess it's come a very long way. And in the beginning, I was probably just trying to be normal, I guess, live a normal life with my diabetes and not thinking so much about things like ultras and that in the early days.
Mm.
But for me, you know, something kind of clicked for me that it's all about, I'm going to get as much out of life as I put in. And if I can be, I've got this condition, it's not going away. So if I'm on top of it, if I'm, manage it well, and it is manageable, some things in life aren't manageable. So if I manage it well, I can absolutely not only be happy and healthy, but there is no limit to what I can achieve. Um, I don't think that, for me, I don't feel like it's a hindrance in any way. And that's been a realization for me.
Yeah.
And I've kind of obviously gotten to the point where, maybe initially in a couple of backyard ultras I did that I may not have talked about it or I didn't want it to be a thing. I've kind of realized, and it happened with the one I did this year, that in actual fact, there's an opportunity for me to create awareness around, um, you know, diabetes and what diabetics can achieve, not just for non-diabetics, but diabetics as well. Saying, hey, yes, we've got this thing.
Yeah.
And yes, it is difficult, but in actual fact, if we manage it well, we can, there is no limit. And that's what I love about backyard ultras. So for me, I have a pump attached to my stomach 24/7. It gives me insulin. I have a continuous glucose monitor also attached to my stomach, which talks to it. And thankfully, the technology now is that my pump is sent readings from my CGM, and it kind of acts as a pancreas, and it gives me insulin or doesn't give me insulin based on what my blood sugar levels are at, which is incredible, really.
Yeah.
And so for me, there's obviously, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to think about when I'm doing a backyard ultra, but I'm lucky where I've gotten to a point where I'm actually more focused or worried about, chafage or blisters or hydration or sleep deprivation or things like that. And in actual fact, when I'm thinking about backyard ultras now, diabetes probably isn't even in the top 5 things I'm worried about or focused on because um, I do have such a good support team. I have kind of educated myself and I've done a lot of trial and error in terms of what works for me. And I do have this amazing technology as well. So I kind of, the first one I ever did, I spoke with a sports dietitian, I saw a physio, I did all of these things, and then I tested, nutrition and things like that. But for me, a lot of it has been trial and error. But I did, kind of just jump into it when I first heard about a backyard ultra. I was like, I need to do one of those. I didn't even think about diabetes. It was just a side thing, a background thing. And then I saw, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's a thing that I have. I'm going to have to manage that. But that's like everything. It's like, okay, well, if I want to do over 100 kilometers, I need to have the right shoes. Okay, well, I need to think about how to not be sleep deprived. I need to think about hydration, nutrition. I mean, you know what they're like. There's so many factors to think about. So for me, diabetes is just another one of those, and not a blocker. And that's absolutely what I don't want it to be, or that I don't think it should be for anyone.
Yeah. So I'm surprised you said it was in 2008 because, I mean, I know a little bit about it, but I thought most people were like, it was something people were born with. But how old were you in 2008?
I was 23.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it can happen later in life and be triggered by a number of things, but it turns out, it's an autoimmune condition, and now it turns out that everyone in my family has the kind of celiac or some form of autoimmune condition. But yeah, I ended up, when I was 23, and as I said, I was feeling quite unhealthy or unwell, which is why I went to a doctor. But I had just thought that, at that time I was doing shift work, and maybe I just felt lousy because of that, and maybe I just lost a lot of weight because of that. But no, it actually, yeah, had become quite problematic in terms of not being diagnosed.
Yeah.
And as I said, it has been a long journey, but I had to go through it, and I had to learn what I learned about diabetes to get to where I am now.
Yeah, it would have been a huge learning curve for you. I mean, from what I understand, there's no rhyme or reason as to how people get it, or am I wrong in saying that?
No, I think that's right, and I mean, yeah, there's probably, yeah, health professionals that might say something else, but for me, I mean, I can only really talk about my experience with it. But yeah, I mean, it can just happen unexpectedly. People can get it when they're 37, they can get it later in life, and for me, obviously I want to help raise awareness for diabetics and also non-diabetics about perceptions of diabetes. And hey, it's type 1. It's not something you get from being unhealthy or eating too much sugar. Or hey, that question of, oh, are you sure you can eat that, or can you eat that with diabetes? Yes, we can actually 100% eat whatever we want. You just need to make sure that what you eat is covered by insulin. And again, too much insulin is bad, and not enough is bad. So yeah, it's that I guess there can be some negativity or ideas around diabetes and how people get it, that it's absolutely not a thing where you get it from being unhealthy.
Yeah, I did see that you do have a mobile. It looks like a little computer that you carry around, and it connects to your body with a little injection. And how long have you had that for? Like, did you have to like give yourself injections at the start, or?
Yeah, that's right. As I said, the technology has come so far, and when I started, I was checking my blood by finger pricking, and I had a monitor, and then I was giving myself insulin with the pens and putting the pen into my stomach, which is obviously very different to. I change my needles out on my pump every 2 days. I insert an insulin capsule on the pump, and then that's attached to my stomach, constantly giving me insulin. And now, obviously, the point where the hard thing for me was the visibility of having to, not know what your levels are unless you finger prick. So you were finger pricking every 2 hours. But now, if I attach the CGM to my stomach, I can literally just look at my pump and it will tell me what my bloods are. And that is such a beautiful thing. Not just, you never have to worry or question, what your levels might be. You can see them. Your loved ones can see them. And in something like an ultra or a backyard ultra, anything like that, I can just feel so empowered that I have this pump attached to me and I know what I am and I can manage that.
Yeah.
So I've just gotten to a point where it's not even a thing I worry about because I have
Yeah.
visibility.
Yeah, for sure. I was wondering how long would that pump last for? Does it actually, when you're running a backyard ultra, does it operate more? Like, does it pump more insulin? Do you need more insulin while you're running a backyard ultra, or?
Yeah, you actually need you'd be less. There's a thing where, I mean, because exercise can bring your blood sugar levels down. So that's why when you hear about diabetics carrying sugar or having lollies, it's because, as I've said, if your levels go low, it's dangerous. But then if you had too much sugar, or you didn't take insulin to cover food and you go high, that is dangerous as well. So for me, let's say I was doing a backyard ultra or anytime I'm doing a run, I would actually set up my pump it gives me background insulin. It's constantly giving me background insulin to keep me stable. But it's also going to give me insulin every time I input carbohydrates for food that I'm going to eat, because you take insulin based on carbohydrates. So let's say I had a background insulin, I would actually reduce that by 50% if I was going to do a run, or I would actually set a temp target on my monitor, on my pump. Let's say normal blood sugar levels might be between 4 and 8. So I would say, okay, can you aim for 8.6? I don't want you to aim between 4 and 8 because I might go too low when I'm exercising. So I set up something like that. And then it's a tricky thing because like everyone, I'm probably aiming for 200 to 300 calories per hour and 600 ml of liquid. But I'm also making sure that, there's that thing. I don't want to go too low and I don't want to go too high. So it's a constant thing. But yeah, I am definitely reducing the amount of insulin I'm having in terms of the background.
Yeah.
It can get a bit, I guess it can be a little bit involved, but there's so many things to think about. And thankfully, in my head, I might be like on a loop for a backyard ultra and think, okay, when I came in, I have to grab food or do this, or I have to fix up my pump. But thankfully, I don't really have to do that. And every time I do a loop, I'm just making sure that I'm carrying a gel or something on me in case my levels start dropping. But I found, my management to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I can see what my levels are. And the great thing is that you're coming into home base constantly.
Yeah. And how long have you had that device for?
I've had this one. I'm just trying to think when I got off pens onto the pump. It would have been about 4 years ago.
Right.
And thankfully, because if I didn't have health cover, I think that probably $9,000 to $10,000 to pump, but
really?
they're covered by health cover, which is great. And then the CGM, I think it was last year it came in, or even this year it came in that they were subsidized. They're subsidized by the government now, so they're much more affordable than they used to be.
Yeah.
But I had it for get a 4 year. You have it for 4 years, and then it renews on your health cover. So I started this one this year, and the one before that I had for 4 years. But
right. So you did have that when you ran your first backyard ultra in 2020?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And before you had it, how many times a day would you have to like give yourself an injection on average?
Every time I ate food.
Wow.
Yeah, so every time I ate food, and also as I've said, there's kind of background long-lasting insulin. So I would take long-lasting insulin in the morning, and then I'd inject at night time, and then every time I ate. But I guess that's the thing, that you're taking insulin based on carbohydrates. So if you take too much insulin, it can be bad, and again, not enough, and it's also bad. So if you, for example, had a meal where it was tuna and lettuce and mushrooms and spinach and eggs and things like that, you wouldn't have to take any insulin for that. So, my thing is all about balance. But I know that if I wake up in the morning and my levels are quite good and I don't want to kind of start the day off in a bad way, well, yeah, if I make an omelette or if I'm low carb or zero carb, then that's just less room for error. It's going to be quite good for me. But yeah, in something like endurance running, you have to have carbohydrate. It's not a thing you can avoid, so you just manage that. But thing for me is always, I'm all about balance. I think I don't want to cut things out in life or diet wise, or definitely not things I enjoy, and I just enjoy eating everything. But it's just about for me, it's just about balance.
Yeah, sure. Now, with that device, like if you're running in a backyard ultra and it starts pouring down with rain, like is it waterproof, or is that an issue?
No, that's actually all right.
Right.
Like it is waterproof. It's all right. I mean, the one we did this year in Feb, it did. I think it rained for 2 or 3 hours at
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
3 a.m. or so, a little bit. But no, it's fine. Although if I was going to go swimming, I just detach the pump, and so it leaves the needles in my stomach.
Right.
And then I just clip it back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can unclip and clip as you need to.
Yeah. I did watch a few videos. It looks pretty versatile.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm at a point now where I don't even notice it. Like I just clip it on. I don't even realize, or because there's literally not really any moment where I don't have it on except showering.
And before I saw your Instagram account, I didn't even know such a thing existed, but I had heard of some people getting one implanted under their skin. Is that a thing, or was I imagining something like that?
Oh, yeah, there's CGMs, the continuous glucose monitoring, and you can kind of they might be something that you see that's kind of attached to people's arms, or it looks like it's under the skin. Um, and there's a few different types of them. Um, and there might be. I mean, my understanding at the moment for me, it's all about my pump, and
Yeah.
I know you can do the pens as well, but yeah, definitely with the CGMs that you can put things on your skin or maybe even under your skin to read your blood sugar levels.
Right.
It's just continually evolving
Yeah.
and getting better and better. I've seen it come so far
Yeah.
in terms of the tech, and I'm a big fan of just in technology in general and how it can make our lives easier. Not just diabetes. I mean, I remember buying CDs and DVDs, and now every song I ever wanted to listen to was on Spotify.
Mm.
I'm not going to say every film I want to watch is on streaming because I can't find anything on there I want to watch. But I
Yeah.
do love how our lives can be made easier by tech, and for me, the biggest thing is health
Yeah. Well,
and
it's amazing
diabetes.
that we're able to do this. Like 5, 10 years ago, there's no way we would have been able to do this.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's even been forced to get better and better because of COVID and what happened there, and how we kind of had to adapt and evolve in terms of what work looked like and what life looked like.
Mm. Is juvenile diabetes the same thing as type 1 diabetes, or is that something different?
No, I think that's the same thing.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's I mean they quite often refer to type 1 diabetes, juvenile diabetes, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, there might be again there'd be probably many people could give a better answer to that, and I might actually be wrong, but yeah, I could.
Yeah. Fair enough. So the first backyard ultra you did at MVP, you did 11 hours. I'm pretty sure that's right. What can you tell me about that one?
Yeah, as I said, I think I had 4 or 5 weeks notice, but I knew I had to do it, and my it was actually the race was about 2 months before my wife was set to give birth to her first child.
Right.
But I did get a leave pass and permission to do that, and I kind of listened to as many podcasts as I could and read up about it. But then I was aware of my diabetes, so I met with a sports dietitian and made sure I kind of be okay in that regard. But then a lot of it was just okay. Well, I'm going to do it and see what happens. I definitely learned a lot while I was doing it,
Yeah.
as you do. But I'm a big believer in jumping at opportunities and just jumping in and learning a lot by doing.
Yeah.
And so for me, I mean, it was. I thought it was incredible, but it was a lot more than I expected. I think I was drawn to backyard ultras initially, or the reason I felt like they were for me is because I love that idea of not being limited or not having a ceiling. I love that idea of a race kind of existing where there is no set distance or parameters. It's up to you.
Mm.
I love that because I'm all about continually trying to improve myself and get better and better, and I just want to see what I'm capable of, and so for me it's all about self exploration. The reason it stood out to me was like, okay, well, maybe I think that I've only done a half marathon and I wouldn't be able to do this, but in actual fact, why not try it and see?
Mm.
And I love the idea of, how can you train for something that you don't even know what distance you're training for?
Yeah.
And what if you think you're capable of doing 5 loops or 10 or 15 or 20 or 25 or whatever, and then you get to that moment and in actual fact you realize that you're capable of more?
Mm.
I love that idea. So for me, I did it and I loved it, and I chatted to a lot of people and just took each loop, and then suddenly felt a lot of pain, and it was heartbreaking probably because I just wanted to keep going, but it was also kind of beautiful. I'm like, oh wow, well this is I actually am completely done, and all I could do after that finish was just think about how I could do another one.
Yeah.
And I guess I learned a lot from that experience of missing out on sunlight coming up by probably like 45 minutes and feeling a lot of pain and thinking, oh okay, well it's I don't know. There's something nice, not something nice about the pain, but you learn a lot. I guess you learn a lot about yourself in backyard ultras and what you're capable of.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, 11 in that 2020 year, that's a good result because they were still new. There wasn't that much information about them there, as there is now. So 11's got, I think the winner did 24 that year. Ben Hurst, he did 24. So,
Yeah, that's right. He did,
yeah.
and that's I think my as I said, it was probably short notice, and my training for that wasn't ideal. But then when I think about every one of them that I've done, and I've done 4 now, my training has probably never been ideal or what it should be in terms of plus 100-kilometer weeks and all these things. My training has been what has been achievable and realistic for me with my life and what's going on.
Mm.
And I think that is that just has to be okay. And it could be that saying all or nothing, but I actually don't agree with that. And there was an ad going around. I think it was health insurance. I don't like to refer to ads, but all or something. Maybe you can't give something. Maybe you can't give everything, but maybe you can just give it something. And so, for me, I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 14-month-old, and even going into this year's, most of my running is at night time when the kids are asleep. If you get woken up at 5:30 in the morning and you work all day and you've got the kids and you get to night time, well, that's when I get out running. But for me, I do what's achievable for me, and then that has to be okay, and then I do it. It could be, oh no, I can't possibly manage 100-kilometer weeks. I can't, get in as much as I would ideally like to. So maybe I'm not going to do it at all. But for me, going into them, I do what I'm able to do, and that has to be enough. But
Yeah.
I love them, and I'm hoping that as time goes on, I can just do more and more.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, you did improve a lot the next year in 2021. Like you did 17 hours, I think. So you must
Yeah.
have been happy with that improvement.
Um, I think that's the thing with backyard ultras as well, because because there is endless potential. I don't know if I've ever been happy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was definitely, I think for me, I'm all about continual growth. So I definitely got to be happy with a PB. So going from 11 to 17, and I think that was the thing that you learn so much just by doing them. You're like, oh wow, okay, I could do that differently, or I could prepare that way, or so. Yeah, I was definitely, I won't say satisfied, but you have to, be happy with yourself sometimes. So yeah,
Mm.
I was yeah, I was happy to get that improvement.
Do you remember what adjustments, if any, you made to improve that much?
Yeah, it was. I mean, maybe I slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a thing that happens in any type of race, and that's I guess the strange thing. If you've never done a backyard ultra before, it is a race, but also it's very different to any other. It's not about speed or anything like that.
Mm.
So, I probably slowed down a bit. I think that's a big thing. You have to kind of be patient and take it easy, and then it was probably things like hydration and nutrition, and what I was doing in my breaks.
Yeah.
But also um, dealing with pain, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Like as I said in the first one I did, I felt a lot of pain and I thought I was done. But in actual fact, in hindsight, and it often happens with backyard ultras, that you reflect and think, oh well, I came back in on the 11th loop I did, and I think there were probably 8 minutes to spare. And it's that question that often I have in every one of them is, oh well, could I have started the loop and actually made it back in time?
Mm.
And so having gone through that and having reflected on that for a year, I was like, okay, well, I think pain or maybe discomfort is going to be a part of it. And so the great thing was that having done one, I had experience and perspective. And
Yeah.
so I was much better at dealing with that. But even then, I did the 17 and the same thing happened. I was like, oh, no, was I done? Like, I know I could hardly move my knee, but I
Yeah.
actually think I might have been able to move it enough to get to hobble around for another one.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing. When I did my first one, I had no idea about how important mindset was.
When was your first one?
Last year, 2022.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So, Yeah, I did 16. You kicked my ass that year. You did 17. Oh, no, you did 18 that year. So
So MVP was your first one last year.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've done 6 now in that.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah,
You've done 4 this year.
yeah, 4 this year, and then I've got one more to come. So I'm going to do 5 this year. I don't think I'll do 5 again in a year, but I'm not getting sick of them. I'm still loving them.
Isn't that great? And it was
Yeah.
your second one you did last year. Was that the one in Shepparton?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
did 22 at that one. So I went from 16 to 22. But yeah, look, that was another big learning curve as well. When I did 22, I really had no idea what I was doing. I didn't really learn much from the first one, really. But yeah, but I fell in love with them. That's for sure. It was
Yeah.
around Shepparton. I was thinking. I thought maybe starting a podcast would be a good idea. A
Yep.
backyard podcast. Yeah.
What's been the big leap for you from the first one to the last one you did? Because
Oh,
you just got the assist, didn't you?
yeah. It's having a properly planned nutrition schedule, like a loop by loop nutrition plan all set out. And it's also just the mindset as well. Like I know I need to focus on every loop. I mean, I really like talking to people when I'm out there running, but I need to be in my own head focusing on each and every lap because if I lose, I've dropped out a couple of times just because I've lost concentration and I haven't been alert enough to know to run faster to make it back in time and things like that. So it's just, and also I've increased my weekly mileage and more elevation has helped a lot too. I think.
Yeah, that's and I think yeah, there is always things to learn, and for me, um, as I've said, I didn't have the kilometers that would have been ideal going in. I think I've probably gotten by because I did the 11 and then 17 and then the next year 18 and then the next year 19, and I think I'm probably getting by on mental strength. I've never gone in with the kilometers I needed. I've probably never gone in having done strength training.
Yeah.
Or warming up or things like that. And that's what I need to work on. I need to have the mileage. I need to be doing strength and things like that and getting my body ready. But I think my mind is actually quite strong.
Mm.
And that's probably what's been getting me. Because I even last year, looking at my kilometers, if you had a look at my kilometers and my training going in and then seeing that I managed 19, it would have been like I thought it was, almost laughable. I was like, oh no way. Even going in, I was like, oh no, I'm just not prepped. But I think it was having the experience and perspective of having done them before and then just being mentally ready for it. And now I know I need to work on so many other things.
Yeah, sure. And in these the first two you did the diabetes, like, did that come into play at all?
I think, yeah, I think I was quite on top of it, because I guess I've gotten to a point, I want to be, I guess, really on top of my health because I want to make sure that I'm there for family and kids and work. And I'm quite enthusiastic. I have a lot of energy. I want to do a lot of things. But that's not going to be achievable for me or anyone really if we're not on top of our health, if we're not feeling good about ourselves. So for me, that's the big driver is that. And one thing I've thought about quite often is life longevity. And that can be a thing that with diabetes, if you're not on top of it now, it's the complications that can happen later in life if you don't look after yourself in terms of, things that have been quite scary to me in terms of eyesight, that being affected, limbs, lifespan decreasing and all those types of things. It's what you do now. I guess that's the big thing with diabetes. So that's why, I really need to be on top of it. It's like, what is it? Superannuation. I mean, it's important, but you also don't think about it as much as you should or need to because it's not really affecting you right now. Whereas it might be like, oh, well, complications later in life, 50s, 60s, but you do need to think about it and it is important. So for me, that's why, I'm driven to be just really on top of my health because I want to achieve a lot and I want to be here for my kids and I want to, get as much out of life as I can. So for me, even in the first two, I just made sure that going in, I was really prepped and prepared and on top of my diabetes, and I had a plan. I met with a sports dietitian to talk about, yeah, well, my diabetes and fueling and all those things. And I did at least from the first one, I did have kind of a clear plan in terms of what I was going to aim for with carbs and things like that.
Yeah.
And my diabetes was kind of, again, the beautiful thing is that after every loop, I could check my levels, and then I got to a point where during every loop, the whole time, I always have visibility as to what my levels are.
Mm.
I even had a scare or a moment after about 16 hours this year where my levels were crashing. I had down arrows and I was going low. Um, but I had a gel on me and I just walked for a bit and I had that and that kicked in and then I was okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like everything is kind of manageable or fixable.
Mm. The earlier this year, I've had a couple of people in my family say, like, because they know how into like running ultras I am and stuff like that. So they, and then because they don't know much about it, like they're like, "Oh, are you sure this is a good idea? Like, aren't you worried about your health? I'm not too sure you should do this." Have you had anyone like say that type of thing to you? Like, I mean, it's coming from a good place, but have you had people say that to you?
I think people might question my mental state or, think it's a bit crazy, but I think everyone's kind of been supportive or seen how excited and passionate I get about them.
Yeah.
And obviously with something like, if I'm able to not only um, live or be on top of my diabetes, but do something like that, they're probably assuming that, okay, well, yeah, it's quite good for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and and that's the thing. I think they're so beneficial for me, not just physically, but it's the mental thing as well. And
Mm.
I don't know how you feel when you're out there, but for me, like I apart from, you know, my wedding and children being born and all that, it's the most backyard ultra is the most incredible experience I've ever had. I find that yes, there's pain and discomfort and all those things, but I find people talk about the flow state, but what happens after 14, 15, 16 hours is the world kind of shrinks,
Mm.
becomes very small for me. Um, and any troubles or worries or anything like that kind of just disappears, and you're kind of just focused on the moment and your breathing and the pain and all of that. And it's just, I don't know. It just becomes very manageable and small. And there's this quote from a film, it was adaptation, and it's the reason it matters to care passionately about something is that it whittles the world down to a more manageable size, and that's probably about how I feel about backyard ultras.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I don't get upset because the PB or anything. I just don't want that feeling to end.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I would love to just be out there forever, and that's just not a possibility. But and I get so inspired and G'd up by people continually breaking records and going further and further, and I just get so excited. Having seen them a few years ago when it was like, oh my god, they did 60 hours, and oh my god, the world record got broken. It was 85 and 86, and now Phil Gore with the 102, and I was just like, this is just the best thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just get so excited by when people do well,
That
do well in
reminds,
them.
yeah. I mean, that reminds me when I did my first one last year. Um, I dropped out after 16, went home, went to bed, woke up the next day on Sunday, and I just couldn't believe they were still going. Like Ben Nichols and Matt Doobie, they were just still going. It just blew my mind, and I realized, yeah, I mean, I was just blown away. And that was a really hot year too. I was just, do you remember that? I reckon that was that the hottest year you've done it at MVP?
Yeah, I think so. It's it has been. That's another thing, isn't it? There's so many factors, but the heat and
Yeah.
having something like this in Feb.
Yeah.
We actually got very lucky this year because that was the coolest one out of the four I've done there.
Mm.
Um, and it was quite hot. And that's the thing, my diabetes doesn't like heat.
Right. Yeah.
Like often I find I'm more susceptible to going low, or the CGM won't stay on. It will kind of unpeel and all of that stuff. But
Right.
just another thing to be, aware of. But yeah, it was quite hot. And I just love that. And I remember them, that year as well. And just thinking like, well, that's it. Like once you've done one and once you see these people, what they're doing, you just want to, they just inspire you to keep going. Yeah, so that's the thing for me. I just want to. I don't think there's no limit to backyard ultras, and I personally don't think there's any limit to what we can achieve. Not just for me with my diabetes, but with backyard ultras. Like I'm 37. I feel like in this sport, I'm quite young, and
Yeah.
why can't I go for another 20 years? Why can't I get into the loops like in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s? I think absolutely. We can achieve like anything we want to. So
Yeah.
for me, I don't know what you're like. I think about them every day.
Yeah, I do. I did the one I did in Shepparton just the other day. Shane Matthews, he's 64 and he did 30 hours, and he could have kept going and done more too. But yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, I love knowing that as 44, I can still keep going for years and years and keep improving. Like I feel like I'm still young in this sport.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
one of the,
incredible.
yeah, yeah. Um, so when you ran at MVP that year, last year, I remember there was like a cryogenic machine, like one of those cold things. Did you go in there and to cool down when you finished?
Oh no, I didn't. That would have been
Okay.
nice.
Do
I
you
think
remember that?
yeah, I remember hearing about that. Um yeah, that would have been lovely. I think this year I was anticipating if it was heat, I just took some super dupers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that'd be great. And I think I don't know about you, but I've always been self-supporting. Like I've never gone with a crew or anything like that.
Right,
I
yeah,
kind of, for me, it's just myself. But I've always, you meet so many amazing people, and thankfully I always end up in a tent or near, you know, awesome people, and you can kind of help each other out.
yeah,
But for me, it's always been quite a personal journey, and I just feel like, yeah, I I don't know, it's something I want to do, so I'll drive it and I'll kind of support myself. But yeah, not saying I'm not open to other people helping me out, but yeah, I've always kind of just been me. Although the first 2 years I did them, like even the year I did 17, that PB, I made the silly mistake the first times I ever did them to drive there, which meant that I then had to drive home.
yeah,
So the I don't know if you've done that, but yeah, the year I did 17, I was like, okay, run 17 hours, go from I think it was 7 p.m. till yeah, like midday,
yeah,
and then have a half an hour cat nap and then drive home. And I told myself, well, never again. Firstly, because it's dangerous, but also what I try to do is eliminate the opportunity for excuses to exist.
yeah,
What I kind of found with that is that I'll be on loop 16 or 17, and I'm start thinking about, oh well, maybe I have to stop soon, so I'm in an okay state to drive home.
yeah, yeah,
Like and what can happen is things like that. So I actually realized that yes, I'm going to stop driving to them. Firstly, so I can be safer, but also because I don't want any kind of excuse. I want to just be able to just go until I can't go anymore and not have to think about driving home or that type of thing. I think we can do that a lot, not just in races like this, but in life where we can kind of create excuses. And I notice that can kind of happen with training, and obviously, as I said, my running is mostly at night, but quite often we could be like, oh, it's too cold, it's too dark, it's too nice. I try to just cut that out when I'm hungry for something. I want to work on something, and you just get out regardless of what it's like, and you'll always feel better having done it. But it is something that, yeah, I can't talk for other people, but for me, I know that it can be easy to create excuses or reasons to not do things.
yeah,
That could have been, oh, I don't have the training. Oh, I've only ever done a half. How can I suddenly go to a race that doesn't end? Do it.
I was so at Shepparton, I was really happy with my mindset during that race because I was finding it so hard, a lot earlier than normal, and I just kept going. And I knew that there was nothing that could stop me until I reached the end where my left leg just wouldn't move anymore. But there was one stage where I ran off to the side off the track a little bit, and my feet were under bushes. And I was thinking, gee, I could have got if there was a snake then, I could have got bitten by a snake. And I was kind of wishing that it kind of happened. So it gave me an excuse to stop. It was hurting that much.
Isn't it amazing? And this is, you mentioned, so I did the one that was 11 hours. and then the following year I did 17. But I think it was that pain that I experienced in that first one where I thought I was done, and I called it. And in actual fact, I realized that maybe I wasn't. And I remember that year that I came back, and I managed to, I don't know how, talk someone from work who had never done a backyard ultra into doing it with me.
Yeah.
And I remember being on, I think it was loop 12, and it because I'd slowed down quite a bit, and I thought I was done. And I ended up finding him and talking to him, and he was like, "Oh no, I'm just stopping every now and then. I'm walking." And it's like, I just walk for a bit with me. And you'll find that if we walk, and we walk a bit more, we'll still come in with plenty of minutes to spare. And so I walked with him and realized that I came in and there was still like 5 minutes or more than enough, even though, I'd been coming in at 45 and 44. And that's what had happened in the previous year when I did 11. I think my slowest loop had been my last one, the only one over 50 minutes. So I think it was 53. And I was like, oh, I'm done. And then in actual fact, I was running with him and I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, I don't need to come in at 45 and come in at 54 or 55 or 56. And so when I thought I was done and I was ready to call it, in actual fact, I talked to him and it kind of sparked something and I went for another 5 hours.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, well, no, you're actually not done. And you also don't actually need to come in with 10 to 15. And you often see it, people come in, their loops are in the 44s and 45s and suddenly they have one that's like 49 or 50 and they're done. Well, in actual fact, you have an hour. So yeah, that's definitely something that I realized coming back, that it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll have them in the 45s and then 50s and then 56, and you just have to come in before the hour. And even if you come in, you don't have long to spare at all, just grab your bottle, tailwind or whatever, and just go out again. So I think it was when I did 17 that I realized that moving forward, I just wanted to do them until I felt that I either timed out, or the last two I've done, I've been like, if I had gone out for another loop, you probably never would have seen me again. Like, I was like, okay, in actual fact, I'm probably going to disappear into the wilderness. So the last two times I've caught it when I felt like I absolutely was done. And that's where I want to be now. I just want to go until I'm absolutely broken.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, when we kind of talked about it already, but earlier this year when you did 19, do you put that down to mainly mindset, or were there other things that you improved on or made adjustments with?
I think it was, yeah, I mean, I think that was mostly mindset.
Yeah.
And having gone through some of the pain and things before.
Yeah.
And now I guess having done that and getting more, well, as I said, I'm just in love with them and I want to keep doing them, but also just keep that experience going. And so I kind of know the work I need to do in terms of, the other training. I feel like, yeah, mentally I'm strong and that's all right, but I need to get my, your body is quite important. Your legs are important.
Yeah.
All of those things. So yeah, I've got to work on that.
Yeah. And what was it that ended it for you this year?
It would have been, it was my body.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it has been, and that would be, got to do more mileage, got to get more serious about the strength and all these things. And that just comes with, we're all busy. Everyone's busy. I never really, by busy as an excuse, because if you're really passionate about something or you want something, you find time to be able to fit that in. And I guess that's the thing. Like, yes, kids and work and all those things, but lots of people have that. So for me, it's about, okay, well, I can run when they're asleep. I can do things like, and I have done this before for backyard ultra training, where I set the alarm for 2 a.m. and went out and, did 5 loops and then came back and was parenting at 7 a.m. But you can do that. You can do it. Yeah, it's not fun, but if you're serious about it, like fit it in and do that. So yeah, it's kind of, if I get really hungry and it's something I want to keep doing, I just need to be able to, get committed and fit everything in.
Yeah. You did mention that you've never run with the crew before, and it sounds like you kind of enjoy getting in the zone and doing it yourself. But do you think you might run with the crew next year or something like that?
Yeah, it's hard. Like I'm kind of, and it's probably not because I just want to do it by myself. I'm kind of self-deprecating, and I just can't imagine myself ever asking anyone, like, do you want to come out while I'm doing an endless run? And it's like, it's kind of, it's probably that.
Yeah.
I just, I would feel terrible even asking anyone. And I mean, last year when I did the 18, the mate that I managed to rope him from work and do the previous one with, he actually came out and was with me for like the last 3 hours or last 4 hours that I did, and that was huge.
Yeah.
It was actually really helpful when I came in and I didn't have long to spare, and he was helping me out with injury and shoes and all those things. And so I can absolutely see the benefit. And I mean, this year when I did it, I was in a tent of there were about 6 or 7 of us. And in actual fact, we were kind of acting as each other's crew. And there was one guy there who wasn't running, and he was kind of helping me out or helping us out. So that was kind of, yeah, I saw how beneficial that could be. And in actual fact, we became like a little community. So in actual fact, yeah, it wasn't just me at all.
Yeah. When I ran at Shepparton a couple of weeks ago, I did that without a crew. My girlfriend got there after like 31, 32 hours, but I knew I was going to do pretty much the whole thing without a crew. But I did have a couple of people come in a little bit and help me out, and it made, like, after 20 hours, it just makes the biggest difference just not having to move an extra few meters and having someone else do it for you. It just makes a massive difference.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And even, yeah, last year when I did 18, I ended up, in a tent with 2 guys who I'd met in the previous year and run with, and we kind of helped each other out. Like one of them, he got to about 5 a.m. and he was I think he was saying he was bored or over it mentally. He just didn't want to keep going.
Yeah.
And myself and the other guy talked him out of it. We're like, oh, what are you thinking? And in actual fact, he then went on to do 19.
Oh, yeah.
This was at the early stage before he'd even done like 12 hours where he wanted to, give up. So in actual fact, even if you don't have a crew, you can have other runners or people around you can kind of support you, and you can help each other out. And that's what I really love about it as well, is that, I guess the community and the vibe and the people that I've met.
Yeah.
I kind of like, when you go to preschool, if there's another kid, for me, like if there was another kid dressed as Batman, I'm like, oh yeah, instant best friends. Whereas for me, it's like anyone who loves running, and particularly anyone who loves backyard ultras, I just know that we're going to get along. Like I know we're like the same tribe or wavelength.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, I guess that's why I find it quite easy to meet people running and talk to people who love running.
Yeah, 100%. So you did mention to me via message that you're planning on doing MVP next year, but you want to do more than just the one. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think for me, it's about, I've got to, with my wife, I've got to put the leave pass in probably a year in advance. She does know that and I think the other night said, are you actually asking me? Because what if I just said no? I was like, no. So yeah, for me, I want to keep doing them, and I'd love to do. I guess I've been doing the one because of life and really young kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to be able to do more than one. Why wait a year to do one event that is literally one of the best things you've ever done in your life?
Yeah.
So for me, absolutely, I want to try and fit more in, and I love like seeing people like yourself where just doing multiples, just doing so many of them. I love that.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's going to be, if you want to do more than one next year, I mean, there's a few popping up. There's Shepparton again. There's the new Wild Dog one in June. So you're going to have a few choices.
Oh, there's one in winter.
Yeah, in June. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, you're the person to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Maybe I can do 3 next year.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you started thinking about MVP? I mean, you're improving every year. So have you started thinking about how you're going to like improve again? Maybe hit the 24?
Yeah, I think for me it's just getting serious about everything. There's not one factor, there's not one part. So you can be mentally strong and not have the case in your legs, or not have the training you need for your body.
Yeah.
And you're only going to get so far. You could, and again, you could have all the training in your legs and not be mentally strong. And it's the same thing. So there's just so many factors and things that you need to focus on. So yeah, you probably need to work on the actual running and the distance in your legs, and you probably need to incorporate strength work and have your body strong as well. And then you have to make sure that you're mentally strong and on top of your nutrition and hydration and all of these things. So for me, it's about, okay, not just focusing on one area. It's not just about being on top of my diabetes. It's not just about, okay, feeling okay about how I feel mentally. It's all of it. And you kind of got to treat all of it with respect. And that, I guess that's the great thing about having just jumped into the first one I ever did and doing 11. I was like, okay, well, it's actually, it demands respect. Like, you got to respect your body. You got to respect the distance. This is not just a thing. You got to make sure you put the work in. So for me, it's about, you know, I converted the garage to a rumpus playroom for the kids, where I have managed to get a little space where I have gym equipment or strength stuff. So, I know I need to focus on that, and I just need to get the Ks in as well. And as I said, it's just getting out in the dark at night when everyone's asleep, and the kids do eventually go to sleep. So I know there'll always be an opportunity to get out and run. So it's just about getting out and doing that.
It looks like you're like you're definitely not a slow run. I mean, you fit pretty fast. I mean, you're doing these pram runs averaging about 5-minute Ks. So, I mean, you're pretty fast.
It's funny. Like I can do sub 20, 5K.
Yeah.
And sub like 42, 10K and
Mm.
things like that. But it's funny. I'm probably more inclined or gravitate more towards the idea of doing an ultra than a fast 5K run.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like I find them challenging as well, because you just got to push.
Yeah.
But I guess, that was the thing when I first did a backyard ultra. I'd been doing a lot of, my biggest run before that had been a half, and I was doing 5Ks and 10Ks and things like that. And it was after I did my first one where I realized the benefits of slowing down a bit. But I also definitely understand and see the benefits in doing speed sessions and things like that. But I like all types of running.
Mm.
And I did used to like trying to go pretty quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was running with my son yesterday and he was telling me to go faster. I'm like, oh. But yeah, yeah, and as I said, when I was a kid, I was a sprinter. So I did used to like going quick, and now it's just about, I want to see just how long I can go for.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned strength work. Like, have you seen a personal trainer to like get a program made for you or anything like that? Or what type of strength work are you doing?
I've seen yeah, I mean, I've had personal trainers and things before in my life, and I think it was for my second, from my third backyard ultra, I decided to get a run coach.
Yeah.
And was working with them, and she gave me a strength program to do. But it's a thing that I've probably never taken as seriously as I should. And for me, in terms of setup in my garage, it's really things like, bands and kettlebells, and I'm big on body weight and things like that. And that's the kind of thing I want to get into. I don't think that I need a gym or machines or things like that.
Yeah.
But again, I just got to, the thing for me, what I really love is just getting out and running.
Yeah.
But I know that all those other things are going to be beneficial as well. And maybe one day I'll get motivated or excited about stretching, because I'm not going to pretend that that's something that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely don't do any strength work at all. Whenever I've tried kettlebells in the past, like I always end up with sore joints. Like I do a squat, and then like the next few days, like my ligaments are just, I can feel them stretching in my knees, and it's just so uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I know it's a thing that will probably be beneficial for me. I was in the first couple I did, I was seeing a physio, because I know that, and that's the thing as well, that injury prevention and management, because that's the thing with these types of races or endurance running, that for me, I always kind of split it up into two parts. The first part is making it to the start line in an okay state, like just getting there. Because a lot of times, there's been a lot of instances where I've talked to people who are training for things like this, and they don't make it or they get injured. So for me, it's always about, okay, well, my first goal is to get there, okay, and then the second goal is to actually do the race. But even that happened last year, where I was ramping up my training and trying to get the Ks that I wanted to get in, and then I had some niggles and pains, and I was like, okay, well, I need to ease back and actually greatly reduce the amount of Ks I'm doing, because I was in pain, or found that I had some injuries or things going on with my ankles. So I kind of greatly reduced and just did what I could. And then thankfully, by the time I got to, Feb, I was okay to run. But that kind of, that's been a thing I think you've always kind of got to know when to look after yourself and read your body. Sometimes you might just have to, not run. You might just have to recover. I think it's probably just a part of the game. Pain and injuries and things like that. You can't say that you're going to run, over 100 kilometers or more and just keep running and never feel, never have anything go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been through a few periods where like I probably should have had a break from running, but I just ran through some serious pain in my feet and knees. But I probably should have. This was like 1 or 2 years ago, but yeah. But I know Phil Gore, like he's the best, and he knows how important strength work is. He doesn't post about it much, but he definitely spends 1 or 2 days doing strength work at the gym every week.
Yeah, it's funny. I've talked to people who talk about, who've mentioned the benefits. So
Yeah, yeah,
probably definitely need to listen. Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. If someone like that, who has the world record, and just when you see footage of Phil, it just looks like he could run forever.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
yeah. I gather you'll be following Biggs. In a week.
Yeah, absolutely. I always follow, and I love that there's Aussies in there. Just people from all over. It's great that Phil's in there with the previous world record holders as well.
Yeah,
it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be the best. Like it's easily the best backyard ultra field ever assembled. No doubt about that. I reckon they'll be going for a pretty long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. There's people run these events and they can feel quite small. Like I know when you go out to MVP, the first time I ever did it, and there were probably like 56 runners. It's a Friday night at 7 p.m. There's not really anyone else around. It's almost like no one else even knows that this thing is going on. But I guess the people who win these events and do really well, I guess there's the potential for them to inspire others. Like they probably don't even realize the impact of that. Like we're talking about Phil. I've never met Phil. I've just seen him like online or following events, and that's the thing. I don't know if he realizes like the impact he's had just by doing this crazy race where there's like endless loops. And you mentioned the winner of last year. But yeah, I just get really inspired by what people are doing in these events, and they might not even realize the impact.
Yeah. I mean, I just love it, and the people who do them, like they're just so, especially like people like Phil, they're so generous with their knowledge as well. Like they want to see other people do well as well.
Yeah.
So I've actually started at the end of each episode just asking my guests their 3 tips for doing well in a backyard ultra. So what would your 3 tips for doing well at a backyard ultra be?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's just be patient. I think that's a big thing for me because it's it can happen in any type of race. You get excited, but I think that's the thing. You just got to kind of take each loop as it comes. It can be hard not to think about. You can hear conversations around, how many loops do you want to do? 5, 10, 15, 20. I've gotten to a point now where I don't even want to really think about that. Yeah. I just want to enjoy and enjoy each loop and be present. And yes, you can have things in the background, but you also just really never know what's going to happen or what can happen. So for me, I just want to be kind of patient with myself and be present. I mean, that's what I love most about running, is it allows me the opportunity to be present, to slow down a bit and to kind of freeze time, and be aware of my thoughts and my thinking. Because one thing for me that happens in life is that I find there's just so much noise from life and work and messages and texts and information. That I'm drawn to running, and I love running because it's just a chance for me to just be with me and to just slow down. And that's what I love most about the backyard ultra. As I said, kind of everything kind of disappears and it shrinks. So I guess one of my biggest things is just being patient with yourself. And another thing would just be sorry.
I was going to say, I also have started making a conscious effort of not knowing or not counting laps, because like it's a bit daunting. Like if you're up to 20, for example, and you still know you want to go at least another 10, and 10 hours is a long time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And another one for me is just it's a mindset thing, but flipping negatives into positives.
Mm.
And so what I mean by that is there's like MVP on the course, there's hills. And quite often you could think about a hill and go, oh, a hill. Well, in actual fact, what I realized is that the hills are the opportunity to walk. And walking is quite nice compared to running. So it's like, what happens when you flip it, when you think, oh no, well in actual fact the hill is going to be my opportunity to kind of walk and take a breather. What I actually found is that I then look forward to them.
Yeah.
So you're on this course that has these hills, and at one point there's what seems like a cliff,
Yeah.
but you know you're going to walk that. And so in actual fact, what I end up looking forward to it. So I find there's a lot of value in kind of flipping your thinking, and flipping negatives into positives.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about the MVP course compared to some of the flatter courses. In the flatter courses, you kind of figure out where you're going to walk, whereas with MVP, it's all it tells you when to walk. You don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
So it's funny when you can look forward to hills, and I guess the other thing would just be, yeah, it's hard because as I said, you can kind of pull out or call it when in actual fact you might not be done at all. And
yeah,
what happens then is I mean, I found a lot of regret and reflection and hindsight and things like that. So for me, it's just, believing in yourself and keep pushing. And that's the beautiful thing is that you probably end up discovering that you're capable of so much more than you think.
mm,
Just by, as I said, the second one I did, I thought I was done. Then I kept going for another 5. So it's my other thing would just be about, digging deep and don't be afraid to just kind of explore. And that's what it is. It's for me, it's self-exploration and just finding out like things about yourself.
yeah,
Which we can do in all aspects of life. Like even in work and things like that, we might think we're not capable of something. In actual fact, if we dig deep, or try, we actually can. So that's the other thing for me.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and enjoy it.
yeah. Sure. I mean, I love watching the other runners keep pushing. The last one I did at Shepparton, it was really good because there was quite a few runners who were really set on hitting a particular goal, and some of them worked so hard to hit that goal. Like they were really grinding towards the end, and it was just so awesome to be a part of and watch them do so well.
Yeah, it's I really love Harvey Lewis,
Mm.
and I think you ran with him
Yeah, yeah,
actually
he was at the
at
Masters, so
Dead Cow Gully.
yeah, yeah. I ran half a lap with him and had a chat with him, and he was on the podcast a few weeks ago as well. Actually, yeah, yeah. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, I really love his attitude and what he's done in the sport. But there's this great clip or even gif of him. Like I think he came in one time in the Backyard Ultra with like a second to spare, and he jumped, he kind of crossed the line and then jumped back and laid down, and then he had a second, then he got back up, and it's like I love that. Like he literally had a second or 2 seconds before timing out, and he just kept pushing. I think he actually went on to win that one.
Right.
That might have been the time he did 86. Yeah, and I love that. So it's like, just keep pushing and seeing what happens. And you could think, oh, I came in literally with a second to spare. Maybe I'm actually done. In actual fact, I love that he just kept going. I think he got that one. So, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Hey, Mark, thanks heaps for coming on. It's been
No, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, lovely to have a chat.
yeah, really interesting and inspiring as well. And I'm really looking forward to actually running at a backyard ultra with you and talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my favorite things about backyard ultra. And often I find, or I'm thinking, maybe I'm that annoying person after 12, 13, 14 hours that because I would never wear headphones. Like I love just being completely
Right.
present and aware of what's going on. But
Yeah.
also I just want to be that person that comes up alongside you after 48 hours and just starts talking to you about life.
Yeah.
But it's funny how many people get into that and love that. And you don't really encounter people who are wearing headphones. Everyone just kind of wants to be really aware of what's going on. But I absolutely love the chats that happen and the people I've met, and I'm partly drawn to it because of the amazing community and the people who do it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's just my tribe. So I'm hoping I can just keep doing them and keep growing. And that's the thing, as I've said, like with the Backyard Ultra, there's not really any limit or like ceiling. And I kind of feel like it's that way with all of us as well. So I love kind of how it carries over to life as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, well, look, I'm really looking forward to catching up with you at MVP, and yeah, it's gonna be great. It's been a great chat too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks
Yeah,
heaps. I appreciate it. I'll see you
no
in the next
worries.
one.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye. If you've enjoyed this podcast, it would be awesome if you could share, comment, like, subscribe, all of that. If you've got any feedback, shoot me a message. Hope you have a great day. See ya.